She doesn't belong here." The words weren't spoken loudly, but they sliced through the air, sharp as a blade. I stood at the threshold of the marble conference room, the scent of polished leather and cold judgment closing in on me. My parents were already seated, picture perfect, elegant, but hollow inside. My sister, draped in designer silk, glanced up from her phone, eyes meeting mine. A flicker of a smirk danced on her lips, and she leaned in to whisper something to our mother. They both laughed, like I was an uninvited guest who'd wandered in by mistake. But I didn't flinch, not this time. Claire Whitmore, that's the name they tried to erase, the one they never wanted to see again. I walked in, no makeup, no designer labels, just a quiet, unspoken power, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. "Why is she even here?" My sister's voice rose, louder this time, thin with disdain. The lawyer, an old man, cleared his throat, Grandpa's trusted confidant and the only one in the room who looked at me like I belonged. He held a cream-colored envelope, heavy in his hands, as though it carried the weight of all our futures. "Before we proceed," he said, his voice steady, "your grandfather left a letter to be read aloud in front of everyone." The room stilled, like the air itself had drawn a deep breath. My father shifted uncomfortably, my mother's perfect smile cracked. Just for a second, I stayed silent, because I already knew what was coming. I wasn't here for revenge. I wasn't here to pick up scraps. I was here to close the chapter they'd tried to write without me. They thought I'd disappear, fade into the background, a forgotten casualty of their world, but Grandpa never liked leaving debts unpaid. The letter quivered slightly in the lawyer's hand as he opened it. When it was read, their carefully constructed world would tilt, and I would be the only one sitting still when it did. They always said she was the special one. From the moment she was born, the sun seemed to rise just for her. My sister, blonde curls, dimpled smile, eyes like glittering lakes, she was the kind of child strangers couldn't help but praise. My mother would beam, placing a hand on her tiny shoulder, saying, "She's our little star," and no one ever asked about me. On her 6th birthday, they rented a petting zoo and hired a magician, banners with her name, piles of gifts wrapped in pink foil, and a cake so tall it needed its own table. I stood to the side, the disposable camera in my hands, clicking photo after photo as she posed like a doll. 2 months later, on my birthday, I received a navy blue sweater, 2 sizes too big, no cake, no guests, just my mother saying, "You've always been low maintenance, that's a gift, too." I smiled and nodded. I always did. I didn't cry, I didn't complain. I folded my hurt into quiet places no one ever bothered to look. One Christmas, I saved up my allowance to buy a tiny music box I saw in a thrift store. It wasn't much, but I was going to wrap it and pretend it came from someone who cared. But the night before, I saw my sister crying because she didn't get the necklace she wanted. So, I gave it to her. I told her it was a last-minute switch from Santa. She laughed, hugged me once, and ran off to show our parents. No one asked where it came from. No one thanked me. That was the pattern. She sparkled. I dimmed. She demanded. I adapted. She was the golden child, the masterpiece they hung proudly on the wall. And me? I was the frame, the quiet thing that held everything together but was never once admired for it. It was a Sunday afternoon, but the house felt like winter. The curtains were drawn tight, the grandfather clock ticking too loudly in the silence. My father had become thinner, quieter, a shadow of the man who once commanded the room. Cancer, they said, the kind that doesn't wait for goodbyes. We were all gathered in the living room. My mother sat rigid beside him, a stone-carved mask. My sister twirled a strand of hair around her finger, impatient, bored, probably thinking about her next tropical escape. And me? I sat in the old armchair in the corner, the one that creaked when you shifted too much. I didn't move, my hands folded neatly in my lap, even though my heart was racing, warning me that something was about to shift. The lawyer arrived shortly after 3, carrying a slim folder. Everyone straightened, except my father, who didn't even lift his eyes. The lawyer cleared his throat. "This won't take long," he began, reading through the will, estate divisions, trust allocations, investment instructions. Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "To my younger daughter, I leave $20 million, to be dispersed immediately upon my passing." My sister smiled, no surprise, just satisfaction. She waited for the next line. I waited for my name, but it didn't come. Instead, there was a pause, a long, uncomfortable one. Finally, my mother spoke, her eyes never leaving her hands. "We just assumed you'd figure it out. You always do." That was it. No apology, no explanation, no pretense of care. My throat burned, but I didn't cry. I simply nodded once, slowly, deliberately, and stood up. No one stopped me. No one called my name. As I walked toward the door, I passed a photo on the hallway table, my father holding my sister as a baby, grinning like she was the only thing he'd ever done right. I looked at it for exactly 1 second. Then, I opened the door, stepped out into the cold, and closed it behind me, softer than they deserved. That was the day they cut me out. But it was also the day I began to write my own story, one they'd never see coming. The days melted into one another, without a place to call my own. Time seemed to stop, or at least lose its meaning. Morning, afternoon, night, they all blurred into varying shades of silence. I bounced from a friend's spare room to someone's couch, then to no place at all. Dinner was whatever could be microwaved in 3 minutes, ramen, stale crackers, or a half-eaten sandwich left over from someone else's meeting. I kept telling myself it was temporary, but I lied to myself a lot back then. Rejection piled up like unwanted mail. We regret to inform you. Those words felt like a familiar punch, like a confirmation of everything my parents had always said. I wasn't enough. I didn't sleep much. Some nights, I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was invisible, built to survive, not to succeed. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with reminders of everything I didn't have. My sister, laughing on a yacht in Santorini. My parents, clinking champagne glasses in Maui. Caption, grateful for family. The worst part wasn't just that they'd moved on without me, it was how easily they'd erased me. One night, when I was cold and desperate, pride long gone, I knocked on my parents' door. My mother opened it just a crack, her eyes scanning the hallway as if someone might hear. She didn't invite me in. Can I stay for a few nights? I asked softly, just until I find something steady? She looked behind her again, as if the very idea of me there might disrupt something. Then she said, "Your sister's sleeping, we can't have disruptions." I'm sorry. The door closed without another word, no goodbye, no hug, just the sound of the lock sliding into place. I stood there, frozen on the front step, until my legs gave out, and then I walked away, not because I had anywhere to go, but because I couldn't bear to stay. Later that night, I sat alone in a dim motel room, a single flickering light bulb above me. I pulled an old photo from my wallet, one I hadn't seen in years. It was a picture of me and Grandpa, sitting on a bench in the park. I couldn't have been more than 10. His arm was around me, and he was smiling like I was the only thing that mattered. That's when it hit me. Maybe I wasn't worthless. Maybe I was just waiting for the right person to remember who I was. A few days later, a letter arrived, plain envelope, no return address, just my name in slanted handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Inside was a short note, like a message left on a grocery list. Meet me at the garden bench, Sunday, 3 p.m. G. The bench, the one behind the retirement home, nestled between 2 overgrown rose bushes. We used to sit there for hours, sharing stories, sunflower seeds, and silence. I hadn't heard from Grandpa since before the inheritance had shaken everything up. I thought maybe he had forgotten me, too, or worse, chosen silence. But when I arrived that Sunday, there he was, already sitting there in a dark wool coat, his cane by his side, hat pulled low as if trying to disappear into the wind. He didn't smile right away. He just studied me, long and steady, like he was making sure I hadn't broken. Sit, he said. So, I did. For a while, we said nothing, only listened to the rustle of dry leaves and the distant hum of traffic. Then he sighed. They think I didn't notice, but I did, he said. I swallowed hard. My throat was raw from all the things I hadn't said. They gave her the spotlight, but you showed up when no one was watching. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folder, thick and heavier than it looked. Bank documents, deeds, business shares, an untouched trust fund in my name. My fingers trembled as I flipped through them. This isn't charity, he said softly. It's what you earned, and what they were too blind to see. Tears hit my cheeks before I could stop them. I haven't cried like that, not since the night they locked the door on me. He placed his hand over mine. Don't let their noise drown your purpose. Build, grow, and when the time is right, come back. I nodded, not because I had a plan, but because for the first time in years, I had something to fight for. It wasn't revenge, it was legacy, my own. My first apartment wasn't much, just a twin mattress on the floor, a chipped desk, and a window that barely closed, but it was mine. No one could take it from me, no one could tell me I didn't belong there. Every morning, I woke up before the sun and opened my laptop. I took free online business courses, watched videos on marketing, finance, leadership, I scribbled notes on the backs of old envelopes, studied while eating dollar store noodles, and every Sunday, I met with Grandpa, or after his health declined, we talked on the phone. He'd ask me what I learned, what I built, what mistake I made that week. Then he'd say, "Mistakes are rent, you pay them to stay in the game." He believed in me, even when I didn't. I started small, handmade planners sold through an online shop, then custom prints, then digital templates. People liked them, word spread, I reinvested every dollar, and while I worked, my sister celebrated. Her social media overflowed with luxury. One day, she was in Paris with champagne, the next, in Bali with a new boyfriend, designer shoes, designer dogs, designer debt. She had millions, but not $1 went to anything that grew. Me? I had nothing, but I planted everything. Within 2 years, I built a 6-figure business, then a team, then offices, quietly, without anyone watching. I became someone new, someone solid. I didn't chase headlines, I chased legacy. I never posted photos. I didn't need a like count to feel real. Grandpa's voice echoed in my mind, "Grow quietly, let them be loud while they fall." So, I built and waited, because deep down, I knew the world would hear from me again, just not the way they expected. The conference room hadn't changed. Same glass walls, same marble floors, same smug faces sitting across from me. My mother gave me a passing glance, polite, but empty, like I was a stranger on a bus. My father didn't even look up from his phone. My sister? She laughed under her breath when I sat down. She actually showed up. She whispered to her fiancé loud enough for me to hear, "This should be fun." The lawyer cleared his throat. His hands shook. "This is the final reading of the will of Harold Whitmore, his last and binding instructions." He opened the envelope slowly, unfolding the paper with deliberate care. The room fell still. "To my younger granddaughter, the one who always had more than she knew what to do with, I leave exactly what she valued most, attention. She already took enough." My sister blinked, her smile dropped like a stone. "To my children, who measured their worth in numbers and overlooked character, I leave only my name, because it meant something before they wore it." My father stood up. "What the hell is this?" The lawyer raised a hand. "To the one who was told to survive, you already did, the rest of you will now survive her." The room held its breath. "I leave my estate, my remaining fortune, controlling shares of Whitmore Industries, and the contents of my private trust, to my eldest granddaughter. She earned what none of you could buy, my respect." My mother gasped. My sister's chair scraped against the floor as she stood, tears already streaming down her face. "This is a mistake. She manipulated him. She doesn't deserve this." I didn't respond. I didn't move. I just looked at the lawyer and gave a small nod. Let them scream. Let them burn. They thought I came for scraps, but I didn't come to be included. I came to take back what was always mine. As I stood to leave, I turned to them one last time and said, "You gave her money, Grandpa gave me a legacy." I thought it was over, but people like my sister don't lose quietly. 2 weeks after the will reading, I was served with a lawsuit, accusations of manipulation, undue influence, claims that I took advantage of a dying man. She didn't call, she didn't ask to talk, she went straight to court. The tabloids loved it. Aries disinherited by scheming sister. She held press conferences in pearls and crocodile tears. He was vulnerable. She got inside his head. That money was meant for me. For a while, it almost worked. Courtroom packed, cameras flashing, the gallery whispering behind their hands. My parents sat behind her, stone-faced, their silence trying to erase their guilt. Then came the confrontation. She stood on the witness stand, voice trembling with carefully rehearsed rage. "You don't deserve this. You tricked him." Her voice cracked, mascara smudging, every inch of her performance designed to wound, not just me, but everything I'd built. I didn't interrupt. I just waited for the judge to finish taking notes. Then I stood, calm, steady. "I have one final piece of evidence." I handed the judge a flash drive. A video began to play on the courtroom screen. Grandpa, sitting on that garden bench, eyes clear, voice strong. "If she challenges this, it proves what I feared, that she never earned anything. She only knew how to take. And if you're watching this, she's still doing it." The silence that followed was louder than any scream. The judge ruled in my favor within minutes. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed as my sister sobbed into her lawyer's coat, her perfect world unraveling in front of every camera. I walked past her slowly, didn't gloat, didn't stop, but I did whisper, "Your money was a gift, mine was a test, and I passed." I never moved into the mansion, not because I didn't deserve it, but because I didn't need to prove that anymore. Instead, I renovated it, room by room, not into a palace, but into a purpose. The West Wing became a scholarship center named after Grandpa, the Whitmore Initiative. Every plaque on the wall bore a name like mine: overlooked, underestimated, told to survive. And in the front office, I hired the same employees my parents once laid off when they restructured the family image. They showed up early, stayed late. They remembered what it felt like to be tossed aside. So did I. I never heard from my sister again, not directly, but one evening, I drove past a crumbling mansion at the edge of town, her name still etched on the gate. The windows were dark, the lawn overgrown, but she had everything, and she lost it the way she lived, loudly, carelessly, all at once. I didn't stop the car, didn't roll down the window, didn't look back. I just kept driving because I'd already arrived. They gave her everything to shine, but in the end, I lit my own fire.